Hi everybody, this is Tanishka and this is my forecast for this week and the lessons that we're needing to surf as we approach new moon in Gemini, which is happening June the 3rd. So the moon is currently waning. What does that mean? Well, getting smaller from our perspective here on Earth. So as that lunar light wanes, it gets less and less, our energy gets less and less. So this is a week to really give yourself as much space as you can, because we actually have, good morning, Carla, thanks for joining me live. This new moon, we're going to have Venus and Pluto doing a bit of a dance. So there's a potential, hi Shaz, for, blow-ups in relationship this week. So more about that later. But we're going to dive in by looking at the lessons of Gemini, because this new moon is happening at 12 degrees Gemini. And Gemini, when we experience the new moon in a sign, it often brings up the shadow of that sign. So regardless of whether you're a Gemini or not, actually really doesn't make any difference. We're all going to see the dark side of Gemini in ourselves, in our loved ones, the people around us, and on the world stage as we get closer to June 3rd, the new moon in Gemini. So better the devil they know, as the saying goes. The more we understand the lessons and the shadow side, the more we can overcome it with the strengths of Gemini. Hi Vicky, hi Shannon, thanks for coming on in. Now I'll be checking back. I know we've had some problems with Wi-Fi. The last one I did on Greece was very pixelated, so you might hear, it sounds like I'm in a wind tunnel here. I'm in a friend of a friend's office, so I'm hoping the Wi-Fi is going to stay with us. But if you can let me know, just type a message if we start pixelating and, going to crap. All right, let's get in there. So Gemini is an air sign. So whenever we have a major transit through Gemini, there's a lot of talking. So if you want to get a good night's sleep, turn off all notifications. If you want to get work done, turn off all notifications, because social media is going to go off tap this week. This is a time when we can be so easily distracted by information that actually we don't even need to know, the sort of clickbait crap that takes you down a rabbit hole and you're like, how did I end up here? So be very discerning about how you use social media in the lead up to this new moon. And, if you observe people behaving badly on social media, it's kind of like road rage, with that degree of separation, feeling that they can just take all their, angst out on other people. Just, block, set boundaries. Yeah, we have the power to do that. So this week is a time when we may experience more anxiety. So that's because Gemini is the youngest of the three air signs. So the air signs are Gemini, Libra, and I've just totally blanked on the other one. Good. Anywho, someone I dare say will help me out and write it in the column. I can't believe we've just gone totally blank. Anyway, back to it. So being a young air sign, Gemini transits can see us sort of descending into talking about other people. So gossip, rather than one of my favourite quotes is, small minds discuss other people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas. I think that was Eleanor Roosevelt, and I could have had it asked about, but you get the gist. So the point is, if you find yourself starting to share stories that aren't yours to tell this week, be big enough to go, oh, that's not mine to tell. and acknowledge your own shadow behavior. And where possible, steer conversations towards discussing ideas rather than what other people are up to. To support the nervous system. So if we think about the nervous system, it's governed by the solar plexus. The word plexus is where we have a lot of, the nerves meeting in this one place. And the solar plexus is located between the tummy and the heart. And this governs all of our digestive organs, but also our nervous system. This is what governs the mental body, the lower mental body, that is, the rational body. And so you may, if you have a lot of anxiety this week with all this Gemini energy, experience, sort of that knot or stress pains, or just being really flighty, so not able to sleep, not able to even eat, talking really quickly, just mania, manic behavior, not grounded. So if you find yourself getting towards that way, and those who have a lot of Gemini or planets in the third house, which is ruled by Gemini in their natal chart, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to astro.com and just get a free chart, no affiliation with me. Do things to unwind your mind. Anything with the hands helps to unwind the mind, because all the to-do lists that we stack upon our mind every day, it becomes more tightly wound, yeah? And that's when we become, frazzled and we start to feel frayed at the edges. Whereas if we can do things with our hands, whether it's, a domestic craft like knitting, crochet, a handicraft, or maybe, something like woodwork or metalwork or cooking, baking, God, self-pleasure, anything with your hands, you get the idea. But it just helps to unwind the mind and calm the nervous system. But I would also recommend this week, anything that is sensual. So this new moon, whilst it's happening in the sign of Gemini, it's happening in the constellation of Taurus, because thanks to the precession of the equinoxes, the constellations and the signs are no longer aligned. So if we think about Taurus, it's about, tactile, sensual pleasure. So to go sit in the garden or sit in a sauna to relax, or candle gaze, fire gaze, stare at the sunset or the horizon, or listen to waves on a beach crashing. Something that engages the senses will help to still the mind. So yeah, if you find yourself unable to sleep this week, unwind your mind. And if we're not doing that naturally, of course, the tendency is to kind of, want to have a drink or something that'll lobotomize us, or a sleeping tablet or something. So if you can, just like you'd have a wind down routine for children that you were settling before sleep, having a hot bath is good too, because as our body temperature descends, it's easier to then drift down into a sleep. So this new moon happens on Monday, okay? So don't overdo it this weekend. If you can have some unscheduled time, you will be much better for it come Monday. So yeah, if you're tempted to organise a lot of things for this weekend, just remember the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and by the time the weekend rolls around, the energy is less and less each day, and the weekend is the lowest ebb. So just, give yourself and the people you love a wide berth, and do things that are deeply relaxing. Curl up with a good book, have a beautiful bathing ritual, have cheese on toast instead of expecting yourself to cook a lovely meal. Just, do it easy. So Gemini brings out the archetypal magician. Now, when the magician is running in the shadow, so disempowered, unconscious, he is the trickster, or she is the trickster. Who's the trickster? Well, that's kind of the illusionist that pulls rabbits out of hats, or, tries to pull the wool over people's eyes in order to gain something personally. So we need to be careful this week of any scams, okay? Because this week is when we're most likely to be pulled in by some sort of, get rich quick or online scam, somebody that promises you the world. So just be very discerning. And the same with, the lesson of Gemini and the 12 trials of Hercules is the false teacher. So somebody who puts themselves on a pedestal and withholds knowledge in order to maintain their own power base. And these are often people that are very charismatic and can make you feel confused, like you don't know your own mind. Okay, so a great teacher is someone who will affirm your intuition as your highest authority and will say to you, whatever I say, question it. Yeah, ask yourself, does it resonate with my own inner knowing? Because those, whether they're preachers, teachers, leaders, politicians, if they're telling you that they know what's better for you than you know what's good for you, question them. So that's a big one to be mindful of. People who don't know their own mind are more likely to go along with the group energy, the group mind. And the more we do that, the further away we get from what our own inner knowing is. And that's when, people can end up in, well-meaning cults. So what's the positive of Gemini? Well, it's the wise sage. It's the magi. So remember, people speak about the 3 wise men that turned up at Yeshua's birth, the astrologers. I'm sure a lot of Christians would find that challenging to contemplate, but they were magi. So they were men who studied the cosmology, men who studied the natural cycles and the effect that the natural cycles have on us. So, this is the empowered Gemini in all of us. So this is a time for, esoteric study, whether that's numerology, astrology, feng shui, geomancy, but the esoteric sciences, we're conditioned in our world to be fundamental about exoteric science, the science that we can prove with the 5 physical senses, that which makes sense to the 10% rational mind. But the esoteric sciences are what we can only perceive with our subtle senses. And in the ancient world, both exoteric and esoteric science were considered equal, but different. So, as the wheel turned and the empires rose and the ancient wisdom traditions were outlawed, we lost our connection with esoteric science. And these days, if you are into esoteric science, such as astrology, a lot of people I observe are closet magicians or closet mystics. It's not just our dear gay and lesbian brothers and sisters that were in the closet, it's our inner mystic. So we have a bit of work to do on that, folks, on legitimizing esoteric science. And that is positive Gemini expression, to be a wizard, somebody who looks at the deeper meaning through the ancient esoteric sciences. So one of the other strengths of Gemini, just having a look at all your comments, just checking that the sounds are right. Yes. Vicky's saying, does this moon bring a feeling of irritation with it? God, yes. Because if you think about it, if it's amplifying all of our mental energy, yeah, what does that do? It kind of sets us on edge. And if you think about the mind, in the tarot, it's described as being the double-edged sword. This is why in the tarot, the suit of Swords represents the mercurial mind, the suit of air. So, you know, that double-edged, like living on a knife's edge, if we're just operating out of thinking what I've got to do, and we're not in our body, we're not in our senses, we're not in our heart, then we're very on edge, we're very easily irritated. So yeah, good time to do exercise, massage, just get in your body. What else do I want to say? You wouldn't be doing too badly if you invoked one of the Merlins. I have an understanding of the Merlins from my own sort of immortal time traveling, that you know, this was more of a position than an actual person. Just like the Magdalene was the high priestess, she worked closely with the Merlin in the Druidic tradition and the Avalonian tradition. So you might want to invoke Hermes, or Thoth as he was known in the Egyptian pantheon, or Merlin if you lean more towards the Celtic tradition, to assist you this week in making sense of the mystery, you know, or whether it's divination, prophecy. But this is a wonderful week for, especially as we get closer to new moon, when the psychic energy becomes very, very still. So Sunday going into Monday, a great time for channeled writing, a great time for, just writing a question at the top of your diary, and then just writing channeled, stream of consciousness in response to that. And don't worry if you have to get your shopping list and just other white noise crap out. Just get it all out until the gold starts to flow. Because, when I speak about the negative and positive of this archetype, the more we can get a bridge happening between the lower mind, the 10% rational mind, and the higher mind. So the intuitive mind that has access to the quantum field of divine intelligence, the more we're able to channel our own insights, our own intuition to guide us, so that we're not sucked in by the false teacher or by feeling confused by everybody else's opinion. Because that's another shadow of Gemini, that we can get further and further away from our own knowing by asking people's advice, asking people's opinion. And the more we do that, everyone's got a different idea of how something should be done. So we get further and further away from what our inner knowing is telling us to do, which is that divine intelligence. And we can end up feeling so confused that we're paralyzed, the over-analysis paralysis. So if you can, just still your mind so that you can hear your intuition this week. If you took nothing else from this video, that's the main lesson. So one of the other shadow traits of Gemini or Hermes, this trickster archetype, is enchanting others with charm. Now, as little girls, many of us, or little boys, were reading fairy tales telling us to seek out a Prince Charming. Dangerous advice, because somebody who has a silver tongue and quite a charismatic and a hypnotic way with words can often bend others to do their bidding, so can influence them to do their will. And, here we live in a culture where there's a lot of influences, a term that immediately evokes a flag on social media. So, keep your own rudder, keep your own course, rather than, being influenced by what's happening outside of yourself. And some, just do this without even realizing that they're doing it. They're just very charming and will tell you what you want to hear, but it's just how their ego gets their needs met. It's not necessarily premeditated. But there are those, and I've witnessed this with one of those neuro-linguistic programming dudes up on a stage where they deliberately use techniques, NLP techniques, to impose their will. And one of those techniques is to say, by now you will have realized, and they're embedding the words by now again and again and taking people into deeply receptive states by taking them into deep vulnerability, core wounds, regressing them back using timeline therapy, and then when they're in that state, selling to them to make money out of them, exploiting their vulnerability. So be very mindful of those who use hypnosis in a destructive way, and that is not taking anything away from the wonderful hypnotherapists that use, this direct communication with the subconscious to make wonderful shifts. So equally, what goes in one direction goes equally in the other. So a good week to schedule a hypnotherapy session if you're wanting to really shift some old root core beliefs that are sabotaging your waking world. So if we look now at the strengths of Gemini, so nice to have all your, that's funny. Allegri is saying, I rearrange furniture to get my yah-yah out. That's funny. Thank you. I used to clean. I coined the quote, Rome wasn't built in a day because they had to do the ironing first, when I used to put off writing my stand-up comedy routines because I was so afraid of the rejection. Guinevere has a huge problem with that as a Gemini. Sorry, honey, I missed exactly what it was you were referring to because I was looking at my notes on screen. But you're absolutely welcome to disagree with anything I say. You have your own mind, and I celebrate that 100%. That's certainly the lesson of Gemini, to maintain your own mind. So one of the strengths of Gemini is they're the most adaptable sign. So, if you had to move cities and you're a Gemini, it would just be exciting for you, or if you've got to learn a new job, or, something like learning to drive, or you've got all that muscle memory. Geminis have a real aptitude for adapting to change. So we can use that to our advantage this week, even if we're not a Gemini. We can look at, okay, what have I been resisting? What change have I been resisting because I've been afraid of it? This is a good week to make the change because I'm going to be able to adapt to it more easily, because Gemini is a mutable sign, meaning it mutates, it thrives on change. It finds it really stimulating. So something else that Gemini is really, really gifted at is being multifaceted, and that means being able to multitask. So we're all going to be able to do many things well this week. Now, that isn't to say that, we should be trying to get 10 plates in the air and keep them up. No, not a good recipe for mental health. But if you have to, if you find yourself in a position where, you know what, I've got however many tabs open on my thing and I'm dealing with calls and whatever, you're going to cope with it better than you normally would. Okay, so if we think about what it is to be multifaceted, the soul is the part of us that is multifaceted. So this is a key to being in positive Gemini, and that is, when we're in ego, we're in what can I get from this situation? How does it serve me? What's in it for me? But when we're operating out of soul, then we're coming from serving. How can I serve is what we would ask, in each situation. How can I serve the collective? So because the soul is multifaceted, Gemini is the part of us who often likes to explore the different facets that are within our psyche. The word psyche means soul. So, Geminis are very fun. They're very social. They love to play. They often laugh very easily. And if you see someone that has Gemini rising, they often have this beautiful elfin face, often a round face, and very youthful, So Gemini brings a sense of delighting in the fact that there are many ways to do something because we can draw upon the many parts of us. And that helps us to overcome boredom, because being an air sign, Gemini needs a lot of, mental stimulus. But if we activate that inner magi, remember I was saying that when empowered, this archetype is the magician. The role of the magician in the psyche is to unveil and integrate the different archetypes that collectively make up our soul. So we have, 7 faces of the feminine and 7 faces of the masculine that make up our complete psyche, okay? That's regardless of whether we're in a male body or a female body. And our job, if we are to become the alchemist, if we are to become, as wise as a wizard and to awaken our soul, is to uncover all of these facets so that we shine brightly like a diamond. And that is, the work of Hermes, who is the male archetype that governs the third eye within all of us, again, regardless of whether we're in a male body or a female body. So if that strikes a chord and you want to know more, you can check out my book, Creating Sacred Union Within. It's available on my website, which is themoonwoman.com. And I've also got a retreat in December where we journey those different facets during the time that the sun is moving through the constellation of Ophiuchus, which is the constellation of that inner alchemy to support that journey. So you can check that out on my website if it calls you. What else? Be very mindful of negative self-talk, particularly as we get closer to the new moon. So new moon is when, if you imagine the ovum, and we're seeding our thoughts, we're seeding with our words what our reality is going to be, not just for the next 28 days, starting on Monday, the next lunar cycle, but for the next 6 months until we have the full moon in Gemini. So this is a time to be very mindful of the power we have to manifest our waking world, our reality, with our thoughts, with our words. So really be affirming what it is you want to happen and not focusing on what you don't want to happen. So daily gratitude practice. So what else do I want to say? If you don't know what to be grateful for, start with, having a roof over your head, having food, having clean air, and then go from there. But a really good practice for transcending the saboteur who manifests our worries and our worst nightmare is to write down your fears, to write down your negative beliefs and your worries, and then write an affirmation that is the exact opposite. And then every day go in and visualize seeding that in the cosmic womb at the galactic center. That is just a way that we can awaken the inner wizard rather than just watching Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings and seeing it as fantasy, but acknowledging everything that happens in our waking world is because of what we've seeded on the inner realms. And this is a time, all of these films are calling back this archetype and saying to us, hey, we've got to start taking more responsibility for what we're manifesting. Because what we're manifesting on the planet is, disease, corruption, the opposite of what we want to happen. And we have this power within us to manifest. We just have to remember it. Unfortunately, we've been taught to fear magic, to fear our own power, but through understanding it, we heal that fear. So the more we empower those different archetypes, the more we clear the inner magic wand so that we can get clear intuitive insights, and we can also seed what it is we want to happen in our waking world without obstruction, with clarity. And also, if you're ever manifesting consciously, we always want to affirm it's for the highest good and in accordance with free will. This is like a caveat or an insurance policy we put over it to make sure that whatever we're seeding, whatever we're intending, if it is not for the highest good of all, that we negate it. And that's responsible. The only reason people fear magic is we've been taught, that people are malevolent with how they seed their intentions and how they use their energy. And the irony is people that are unconscious about how they use energy are the ones that are often giving, for instance, I spoke about this last time, I think, with the evil eye, giving someone a dirty look. That's black magic. Or saying something bad about somebody, that's black magic. Or worrying for somebody is black magic. It's manifesting the worst rather than what is ultimately for somebody's highest good. So this is a big challenge this week. On a physical level, you might experience some neck pain this week. Not saying that you will, but if you do, you might want to consider this. We often experience neck pain when we're being caught in a decision between what our head is telling us to do is the right thing, the sensible thing, the secure thing, and what our heart's calling is, what our deepest desire is. And so we can end up, like the bolts of Frankenstein with neck knots because we're wrestling with a decision. So one of the sort of ways that the rational mind, the 10% rational mind, sabotages our soul growth is to use the excuse of time or money. Yeah, these are man-made constructs that limit the expansion and the growth of the soul by saying, well, I don't have the time and I don't have the money, keeping us small in an attempt to keep us safe. So you might have the opportunity to observe where you have a choice this week to really expand, to do something that, your heart and soul is just going, yes, I want to do this. And having that, backwards and forwards between the head and the heart in terms of which paradigm you're going to be living in, love or fear. So we do have a few aspects that are worth noting this new moon. We've got Jupiter square Neptune. So Jupiter, if you think about Jupiter, it's the biggest planet in our solar system. So Jupiter, having it square to Neptune. Neptune is the planet that rules the netherworld, the inner world, what's being called fantasy. So the realm of mythic beasts, the other dimensions that that aren't dense or heavy or formed enough to be able to perceive with the retina and with the 5 earthly senses, but they still exist. Okay, so they're not fantasy, they're just vibrating at a different rate to the physical dimension, right? So this is when we have more ability to attune to the fae, to unicorns, to our ancestors, to our spirit guides. This is a beautiful time for putting on music and, getting pastels and drawing your guides, or sitting in the garden and communing with the elemental beings that, populate your garden, or the tree dryads, the spirits that live inside the trunk of your trees in your backyard or the local park. Go and have a chat with them. But this aspect of Jupiter forming a square to Neptune, it's encouraging us to really expand and think big, expand beyond just this limited view of reality, which is why I think people take drugs, because if they think we're only able to experience 10% of reality, of course you'd want to break out of that. Whereas when we go, well, hang on a second, all that stuff is real, we can perceive it by opening the upper chakras, opening the upper senses. We don't need drugs to do that. We can do it naturally. So some of you may really just think, what the heck, I'm going to ask for the moon, and who knows, I might just get it. This is a great week to take a punt if your intuitive guidance is urging you to do something that will really expand your horizons. Now, if you do have an addiction that you're nursing, just a bit of a warning, this could really see it amplified in a big way this week with a bit of a binge. So if that speaks to you, I would encourage you to find other ways that you can self-soothe so that you don't need to escape. Put on beautiful music that will soothe your soul, really feed your senses, only interact with people that are going to be honoring of your soul, not mock you, not minimize you, because, this is a week when we could potentially see, overdoses and things, people overdoing it when it comes to drug use or alcoholism. So we also have at this new moon Mercury opposite Jupiter, which again is really good for channeled writing. So a good time for communicating with your higher self. And that can also come in the form of observing the signs, reading those synchronistic moments when you overhear a snippet of a song or a conversation, or you see a slogan go past on a bus, or you see repeatedly a symbol or an animal, stop and Google, what does that animal totem mean? Or consider, why am I constantly seeing images of this? Because the more we give it credence, the more we stop and we reflect, the more we join the dots, like a kid doing a dot-to-dot picture, the more things become clear and the more insight we get. So we need to have that, time to connect the dots this week. And finally, we've got Venus trine Pluto. Dun, 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 dun. So Venus, that's our love life, that's our social connections, that's our, seeking of sensual pleasure. And it's in Taurus, okay? So when Venus is in Taurus, we could eat a whole cheesecake. We just, could make love all day, want to sit in a rose garden and not do much else. But, we really, it's the urge to express love, to experience love, and to have romance is huge at the moment. Now, this new moon, it's going to be trine, so forming a triangular aspect, which is a harmonious aspect, which is great, but to Pluto. So that's Hades, god of the underworld. Pluto is what reveals that which has been hidden. It is, often an explosive energy that blows things apart in order to get to the hidden truth. So Pluto's in Capricorn, so Capricorn is about control, structures, conservatism, the old guard tradition, the father. So you might have a situation where, shit goes down, stuff gets blown out of proportion, but there could be a blow up in some sort of relationship this week in your love life. But ultimately, the truth will set us all free, and it will often cause us to look at how we're structuring our time, how we're structuring how we do relationship. So on that note, got our last Sacred Union event happening for our European tour, myself and Franz, my partner. We're doing a healing ceremony for men and women this Friday night in Leipzig in Germany. So if you're in Europe or the UK, short flight or train trip to come join us. And it's an amazing ceremony. We get men and women in the One room, well, first we sit and we do circles separately, men's circle, women's circle to prepare. Then we bring everyone together and basically own the shadow, the ways that we've hurt the opposite gender, which is so freeing. You know, we don't often realize what guilt and shame and judgment we're carrying until we have a safe space to really acknowledge the ways that we've been out of integrity with the opposite gender. And yeah, these ceremonies, we've been doing them all around the world and they're really profound. So if it calls to your soul, check it out on themoonwoman.com. And we're available for hire. You know, if anyone wants us to come do that ceremony in your neck of the woods, just drop us a line at themoonwoman.com. We're also doing the Sacred Union workshop this weekend. So this is, you know, uncovering the shadow dance that we all do. So, you know, the 3 levels of relationship, how we operate out of child, teenager, or adult, depending on how tired or hungry we are, or the level of consciousness, you know, and that's always in flux, and how that impacts relationship and the specific behaviours that flag when we're in one of those 3 levels, and how to shift it up a gear so that we're not spiraling down and dragging each other down into re-wounding each other. So if you'd like to know more about that, again, you'll find it on themoonwoman.com. That's in Leipzig, Germany this weekend. So blessings to you all, no matter where you are. I'll just check and see if there aren't any questions before I jump off. Is it a good time to move into a new direction? Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. This is a time when many people will be, you know, feeling like, yeah, bugger it, I'm going to expand. So yes, absolutely. And like I was saying earlier in the video, a good time for, you know, adapting to new situations. Guinevere's clarified, seeking advice outside of yourself. Okay, well, great. If you can keep attuning to your own inner knowing, and that isn't to say it's not handy to have a mentor, you know. Positive Hermes is a wonderful mentor. It's those that have been through the underworld and come out the other side that make the best mentors, because they give advice from an experiential perspective rather than just, you know, quoting their textbooks from university. Wendy's saying the Geminis I know are terrible with change. Well, that's interesting. I mean, look, our sun sign doesn't account for everything. You know, they might have a lot of Taurus. My dear daughter has 5 planets in Taurus, and so she didn't cope with transitions very well. So I'd always have to really prep her if I was changing plans. So, and she was cusp Taurus Gemini. So yeah, it depends what else is happening in the chart. Oh wow, Emma's emigrating to Australia tomorrow. Awesome time for a change. That's a huge shift. Well done. Philippa, thanks for joining me. Joanne, coping is a multifaceted thing in itself. Isn't that the truth? Absolutely. You know, they say women are more hardwired to be able to multitask, and it's because, you know, we're born with the breasts. So for us to be able to mother, we have this inbuilt ability to be able to do more than one thing at once. However, I personally did want to get it onto a t-shirt slogan. Just because I can multitask doesn't mean I will. Because in terms of mental health, the more one-directional we can be, which is a Buddhist principle, the less scattered we are and the less anxious we feel. Cool. It's so lovely to have you all writing your things. I would love to see your earlier books available on Kindle. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, look, I'm meeting with a new literary agent in a week, so fingers crossed. I'd really love to get my, you know, back catalogue out there, but it is available as sort of PDF ebooks on my website if you prefer, if you're travelling and you don't want to be weighted down with books. All right, I might sign off. Thank you so much to those of you who joined me live, and yeah, just take it easy this week, you know, especially with that Pluto trine Venus. If you need space, take it, be kind to yourself, and yeah, maybe really use that Pluto-Venus trine to look at what transformations you need to be making in the way you do relationship. And you might find my Sacred Union books helpful for that. So, yeah. All right, blessings for now from, where am I? Fürstenfeldbruck. That took a bit of remembering, just outside of Munich. And yeah, I look forward to meeting those of you coming to the gig in Leipzig. God, me and German. All right. Ciao for now.